what's interesting is that it is now 25 years since you got your MBA, and as part of your MBA experience, you were asked to write a 25-year plan.
I was.
How did that work out for you?
There was a professor, I think his name was Dr. Naylor. Does that sound right?
Tom Naylor.
Yeah, Tom Naylor. And he was a great professor, and one of the things that he asked us to do was to write a 25-year plan. Maybe some of you have had to do this. And it was more of a, more of a personal plan. Normally I would never remember this, but I was doing a commencement address a few years ago, and I was scrambling for some old things, and I found in a box this plan. And this plan had turned yellow because of age, but I looked at it, and I would say it was reasonably accurate for all of 18 to 24 months after it was written, and it was nothing. There was nothing, not a single thing on it that was accurate post that. Not a single thing. Zero. And I think that the lesson there is, at least for me, maybe you guys will be different, maybe you have much more insight into what you may be doing, but for me, the journey was not predictable at all. And it goes sort of back to the Lincoln quote, is the only thing I believe you can do is prepare. And the world is going to change many times. The environment's going to change many times. The companies you work for are going to ebb and flow. You may wind up in the same company, you may not. You may wind up in the same career, you may not. You may wind up with the spouse you're married to now, you may not. There are lots of things in your life. I hope that one doesn't change. But there's lots of things that change, and I think that you sort of have to have a North Star and stay with the North Star and let those things go on about you and sort of find your journey. I was born and raised in the South, and I saw over the course of growing up some of the worst behavior in terms of discrimination that literally would make me sick. And I always felt that Bobby Kennedy and Martin Luther King did an incredible amount for the whole of the world. And they didn't solve it, because it's not solved today, but they moved things forward in a major way. And not just for people in the United States, but for people, I think, all over the world. And they knowingly risked their lives for it, that it meant that much to them. And both of them, I think, if we would have had the privilege of talking to them the day before they died, they knew they were doing it. It's not that it snuck up on them and they weren't aware that there were nuts out there that wanted them to take them out. And they kept on anyway. And I think, that is so just incredibly impressive to me that someone would care that much to do it. And so that's why. I have 3 photos in my office. 2 are of Kennedy and 1 is King. That's the only photos I have in my office. I look at them every day. And I think they're incredible role models for all of us. Incredible role models. And that's not a political statement, that's just a statement about treating people fairly and so forth.
You have a very strong ethical compass. And so it's kind of a 2-part question, which is, where does that come from? How is it that you found your ethical compass and have such strong convictions? And the other thing is, I'd like you to tell us what ethical leadership really means to you.
I think the sort of the compass comes from parents, and parents and who you surround yourselves with, friends, and it's sort of that collective group of people that influence you the most. And so I would say that's largely the fact of others and others that have influenced me over the years. In terms of ethics, I think when most people, or many people in business think of ethics, they think of accounting fraud, and they think of insider trading, and this and that, sort of the group of companies that did some bad things with the Enrons, the WorldComs, this kind of thing. But this is not what I think of, because I think largely those are very extreme, small percentage of businesses. And so when I think of ethics, I think of leaving things better than you found them. And to me, that goes from everything from environmentally to how you work with suppliers with labor questions, to your carbon footprint of your products, to the things you choose to support, to the way you treat your employees, your whole persona, to me, fits under that umbrella. And the simple way to think about it, to me, is leaving things better than you found them. And that is what we try to do at Apple in a very simple way. And it's the way I try to lead my life.
When I became dean, one of the first conversations I had was with you. And you told me that I needed to focus on at most 3 things. When you think about your job as CEO, what are the 2 or 3 things that you're thinking about every day? This is what I need to focus on within the company.
I spend almost all of my time on people, strategy, and execution. And I think that most everything else falls from those. If you have the most brilliant people, wicked smart people that collaborate well together, if you set in our case, we're all about products. So our strategy is very product oriented. If that strategy is right, and if you're executing like crazy, there's some things that still arise, but if you get those 3 right, then the world is a great place.
You've talked about your decision to go to Apple back in 1998, and how people forget that at that point in time, Apple was really close to extinction almost, and was certainly in the eyes of some. And you had just actually started a new job at Compaq, which was a healthy, vibrant company at the time. And so you then go to Apple shortly after having accepted this job, and you said you spent about 5 minutes talking to Steve Jobs, and your intuition told you, despite all the reasons not to do this, that this is where I should be. So my question is, given the importance that you lend to this intuition, is intuition something you're born with, or is it something that you've developed over your career so that you've kind of refined your instincts?
I think it's more the latter. I don't think that you're born with a gut. I think the gut matures and gets better and better over time. And what the struggle that most people have, I think, is learning to listen to it and figuring out how to access it in some way. For me, though, what I found was that even though I'm an engineer and an analytical person at heart, the most important decisions I've made had nothing to do with any of that. They were always based on intuition. And the Apple one is a prime example of that. You know, I remember actually forming my list of pluses and minuses, and I could not get the chart to work out the way I wanted it to. Because I wanted something to say, you know, this says I should go to Apple, but it would not. Nothing financially would do that. I talked to people I trusted that knew me, and they said, this is not what you should do. It wasn't so easy, and people said, you know, you're just crazy. You're working for the top PC company in the world. How could you even think of doing this? You've lost your mind. And yet, that voice said, go west, young man, go west. And sometimes you just have to go for it.
MIT and Apple share so much. We both love hard problems. We love the search for new ideas. And we especially love finding those ideas, the really big ones, the ones that can change the world. At MIT, you've learned how much power science and technology have to change the world for the better. And if we are ever going to solve some of the hardest problems still facing the world today, everything from cancer to climate change to educational inequality, then technology will help us do it. But technology alone isn't the solution. And sometimes it's even part of the problem. Technology today is integral to almost all aspects of our lives. And most of the time, it's a force for good. And yet the potential adverse consequences are spreading faster and cutting deeper than ever before. Threats to our security, threats to our privacy, fake news, and social media that becomes antisocial. Sometimes the very technology that is meant to connect us divides us. Technology is capable of doing great things, but it doesn't want to do great things. It doesn't want anything. That part takes all of us. I'm not worried about artificial intelligence giving computers the ability to think like humans. I'm more concerned about people thinking like computers, without values or compassion, without concern for consequences. That is what we need you to help us guard against. As Steve once said, technology alone is not enough. It is technology married with the liberal arts, married with the humanities that make our hearts sing. When you keep people at the center of what you do, it can have an enormous impact. In short, it means technology infused with your values, making progress possible for everyone. I'm optimistic because I believe in your generation, your passion, your journey to serve humanity. We are all counting on you.